We are sponsored by Skip Benton, who is a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Select Real Estate in Northern Nevada and is a board member with the Reno Philharmonic. Ready for something pretty special in the world of orchestral music? We're diving into the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra's Voices of Today.
Oh, yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, it's a 5-season commitment to not just performing, but creating, documenting, and disseminating contemporary American music.
Wow, that is ambitious.
I know, right? We're talking premieres, recordings, videos, even podcasts.
Most orchestras kind of dip their toes into contemporary music, but the RPO is going all in with this one. They're creating a lasting legacy for these new compositions.
It's really impressive. It's like they're building a whole world around each piece,
Mm-hmm.
going way beyond what you'd normally expect from a concert. But before we get into the details, I'm curious about where this all began. What sparked this bold vision?
Well, it started with a generous gift from Stephen Ashley. He made the donation in memory of his wife, Janice, and their shared love for the arts. Their story adds a really nice personal touch to the project.
Absolutely. It's not just about the music itself. It's about honoring a legacy and keeping that passion alive.
Exactly. And the way they're thinking about keeping these compositions alive is fascinating. They're thinking beyond just one-time performances. They're thinking about how to integrate these works into the ongoing musical landscape.
That makes sense.
For example, they're recording these new pieces, and you'll find it interesting that they're doing it with a Grammy-winning record label, Azika Records. The first album is titled Four, and it will feature works by composers James Lead III, Derek Skye, and Roberto Sierra.
Oh, wow. That's a smart way to make the music accessible to a much wider audience
Yeah.
long after the concert is over. You know, when I first heard about this companion piece concept, I wasn't sure what to make of it. It's such a unique approach.
Yeah, it is.
Can you tell us more about it?
It's a really innovative idea. They're commissioning pieces that are specifically designed to be paired with existing well-known compositions. It's not just about showcasing new music, it's about creating a dialogue between the old and the new.
Oh, interesting.
Almost like a conversation across centuries.
Wow. So it's not just two separate pieces. It's a carefully curated experience that adds new layers of meaning to both the familiar and the unfamiliar. I have to admit, I was a little skeptical when I first heard about it, but I'm starting to see how this could really change the listening experience. Could this approach actually change people's perceptions of contemporary music?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. By presenting new music in a context that's familiar and accessible, the RPO is breaking down those barriers of intimidation and inviting audiences to make those connections for themselves. It could be a game changer, especially for those who might be hesitant to explore contemporary classical music.
It's like a gateway to a whole new world of sound. Okay, let's talk about one of those companion piece pairings. They premiered To Seek is Jubilance by Derek Skye, alongside Beethoven's Ninth Symphony last season. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, Skye's piece was specifically written as a response to Beethoven's Ninth, offering a contemporary reflection on its themes of unity and brotherhood. It's not a direct imitation, but a reimagining of those ideas through a 21st century lens.
Wow, now that's something I'd love to experience. Hearing those two pieces back to back must have been incredible. Do you think Skye's piece might even change the way people hear the Beethoven?
That's a really interesting thought. I think it's definitely possible you start to hear things differently when you hear the pieces together. You pick up on nuances and connections you might have missed before.
It makes you think about the evolution of musical ideas over time and how each generation of composers builds upon the legacy of those who came before. And this is just one example of how Voices of Today is redefining the orchestral experience right. They're not afraid to push boundaries and experiment with new sounds and ideas.
Absolutely. They're incorporating multimedia elements, using non-traditional instruments, and even bringing technology into their performances. For example, Ricochet, a concerto by Andy Accio, features ping pong players on stage, interacting with the orchestra.
Wait, ping pong players? I'm intrigued. What was that experience like? Did the audience go wild?
It was definitely one of the most talked about performances of this season. It was visually stunning, and the energy in the room was electric. It's a great example of how the RPO is breaking down those traditional barriers between audience and performer, creating a more immersive and engaging experience.
It sounds like they're not just playing music, they're creating a whole sensory experience. And they're doing this while also highlighting the talents of these incredible American composers. I'm so curious to hear more about the individuals behind these groundbreaking pieces.
Me too. And speaking of composers, one of the upcoming premieres creating quite a buzz is Sensational Dynamism. It's a two-piano concerto by James Lee III. It's inspired by the movements of gymnasts. Kind of an unusual source of inspiration for a musical piece, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you don't typically think of gymnastics and orchestral music going together,
Mm.
but I love how Lee is finding inspiration in these unexpected places. It speaks to his creativity for sure. What can you tell us about the piece itself?
Well, it's scored for two pianos and orchestra. And it's meant to evoke the energy, precision, and grace of gymnastic routines. Lee has talked about how he was fascinated by the way gymnasts use their bodies to create these incredible feats of strength and agility. And he wanted to capture that same dynamism in his music.
It sounds amazing. I read that the piece will be performed by a piano duo called the Naughtons.
Oh, yeah.
What do you know about them?
They're known for their incredible virtuosity and their dynamic stage presence. They've been praised for their synchronization and their ability to convey a wide range of emotions through their playing.
It sounds like a perfect pairing. I can only imagine the energy they'll bring to the stage. This premiere is definitely at the top of my must-see list. And Lee's piece is just one of many exciting commissions on the horizon for Voices of Today, right? The lineup of composers is seriously impressive.
Oh, it is. Roberto Sierra, Gil Shaham, Adele, Anthony Avner Dorman, Aaron J. Kernis, Jean-Yves Thibaudet, Jennifer Higdon, and Julian Schwartz are all involved in future projects.
Wow. It's a who's who of contemporary classical music.
Yeah,
I'm especially excited to see how they're incorporating more diverse American composers.
right. That's one of the things that really makes this initiative so special. It's not just about promoting new music, it's about broadening our understanding of what American orchestral music can be
I agree.
by giving these composers a platform. The RPO is helping to shape the future of the art form and ensure that it reflects the richness and diversity of our culture.
Absolutely. Representation matters, especially in a field that's historically been dominated by European voices. It's great to see more diversity on the concert stage, but let's be honest, contemporary classical music can be a tough sell for some listeners. It has a reputation for being challenging,
Mhm.
even intimidating. How is the RPO addressing that?
They're taking a proactive approach. Remember those companion pieces we talked about earlier? That's a big part of their strategy. By pairing new works with familiar pieces, they're creating a bridge for the audience, making the new music less intimidating and more inviting.
It's like they're easing people in, showing them that contemporary classical music can be just as rewarding as the classics they already know and love. And it's not just about the programming. They're also using technology and multimedia in really creative ways,
You got it.
like the ping pong concerto.
Exactly.
That's a perfect example of how they're pushing boundaries and challenging those preconceived notions about classical music. It's refreshing to see an orchestra that's willing to take risks and experiment. They're not just preserving a tradition. They're actively shaping its future.
Hmm.
Do you think this approach will attract a new generation of classical music fans?
I think it has the potential to, by incorporating elements from pop culture,
Yeah.
using technology in new ways, and creating these really immersive multimedia experiences. They're making classical music relevant to a 21st century audience.
I love that. It's about making classical music exciting and engaging for everyone, regardless of their background. It's about showing people that this music is still alive, it's still evolving,
Yeah.
and it has something to offer everyone.
Exactly. And that's what makes Voices of Today so compelling. It's not just about the music itself, it's about the way they're engaging with the community and fostering a deeper understanding and appreciation for these contemporary composers and creating a legacy that will last for generations. This initiative really seems to have it all.
It does. From the visionary leadership of music director Andreas Delfs to the incredible talent of the composers and musicians involved, it feels like the RPO is at the forefront of a movement to revitalize orchestral music. What are your final thoughts as we wrap up this deep dive?
I'm incredibly impressed by the RPO's commitment to innovation, diversity, and accessibility. Voices of Today is a powerful reminder that classical music is not a static art form. It's a living, breathing, evolving entity that continues to inspire and challenge us.
Beautifully said. It's clear the RPO is not just talking about innovation, they're putting it into practice in a way that's both meaningful and impactful. What stands out to you about this deep dive? What will you be thinking about long after this episode ends?
It's really amazing how they're bringing so many different things together. The music, the technology, The multimedia aspects, the community engagement, it creates such an immersive and dynamic experience. It's not just about going to a concert and listening, they're inviting you to really understand the music, to connect with it on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's about breaking down those barriers between the audience and the performers, the old and the new, the familiar and the unexpected. It's about making orchestral music relevant and exciting for everyone. But it makes me wonder, how might projects like Vases of Today change the way we experience classical music in the future? It feels like they're setting a new standard for how orchestras can engage with contemporary composers and audiences, and how they approach the evolution of the art form itself.
It's a great question. I think we're seeing a shift in the classical music world. More and more orchestras are realizing that they need to embrace new voices, new ideas, new approaches. If they want to stay relevant and connect with a wider audience, the RPO is definitely leading the way, and I think their success will inspire others.
It's like a renaissance of orchestral music. And the RPO is at the forefront, showing the world that classical music isn't stuck in the past. It's a vibrant and evolving art form, with something to offer everyone. We've covered a lot in this deep dive. What's your biggest takeaway?
For me, it's that classical music is not a static thing. It's alive, it's evolving, it has so much power to connect us, challenge us, inspire us in ways that not many other art forms can. Voices of Today is a perfect example of that, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this initiative. And for orchestral music as a whole,
I completely agree. This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. I'm feeling inspired to check out some of these composers and their music. If anyone listening is feeling the same way, I encourage you to visit the RPO's website and dive into the world of Voices of Today. You won't regret it.
I second that.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive
Nice.
into the exciting world of contemporary orchestral music. We were sponsored by Skip Benton, who is a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Select Real Estate in Northern Nevada and is a board member with the Reno Philharmonic.